Hello, everyone, and welcome to the episode 66 of the Office Hours podcast. Happy to welcome back Mo. We had quite a bit of a gap between releases, but yeah, unfortunately, I was quite sick for like a whole week, and taking my time to recover. But it's better now. So I hope you're in good health out there, Mo.
I am grateful to God, but yeah, I would say yes, I am. Yeah, it'd be nice to get out more, but honestly, can't complain much because it's winter and we are having this massive snowstorm
Mm,
right now. Did you hear about it? I think, oh, it's crazy. Everywhere is white. You can barely find the trees. You can't even find your car.
nice.
Yeah, it's really crazy. I don't think I've seen crazy. We get a lot of snowstorms
Hmm.
like every year or something. I get like one or two, but this one is it's something. And there was an accident too, like at the airport.
Oh.
The flight at Toronto. Did
I haven't
anyway.
heard. I haven't really been watching the news.
Yeah, I imagine maybe it must have been due to the weather. I haven't really heard much about it, but I figured maybe. But it is what it is.
Hmm.
But we're here. We're grateful. We're here. Happy. And I'm here to bother you again. So yeah. Um Also new and exciting. I started playing this game,
Oh, five?
GTA, online.
Oh, just
Yeah, five
online.
online.
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Did you play?
No, I never played. Is it good?
You played any new games recently?
Um, Recently, out of the new games, no, but I've I got reminded of Disco Elysium, and I remembered that I like went through half the game, and I thought that I want to finish it, so I actually
Mm.
finished it a couple of days ago. If you haven't played that game, it's really good. It's like
Yeah.
point and click detective adventure, but the lore is very intricate and there's like a lot of writing there and like a lot of variability. So it's quite a good game and it's very pretty too. Like the art
Yeah.
direction is really cool. Yeah. So I think these days
Okay.
it goes on sale quite often, so you can snag it for fairly cheap. You can get it like on GOG or Steam. So it's a really good game.
Wait, I never asked you even. Are you a PlayStation person or Xbox?
Neither.
Please don't say none.
PC
Ah.
Master Race.
Oh my god. Anyway, at least you didn't say Xbox,
Uh-huh.
because then that would
No,
have been
my my last proper console was Nintendo Wii, I guess, like 15 years ago, probably.
That's a long time
Yeah.
ago. Do they still make those?
Yeah. I mean, a friend gave me a PlayStation at some point in time, but I haven't really played it that much. I could never get used to playing on the controller because for like first person shooters playing on controller, it's just I don't know. I don't get it. It's weird.
So you have a PlayStation then?
No, I actually like I sold it off marketplace some time back because I was never using it, and at some point in
Then you
time I
sold
thought,
it.
huh? Yeah, I saw.
Then
Well,
you sold it. It's a gift. Why would you sell a gift, Vasili?
because it's just sitting there collecting dust. At least somebody else can be, enjoying themselves with it.
Fair enough.
So,
Fair enough. Well,
you know,
I hope you change your mind and you try it again. Give it a try. Give
hmm.
the latest one. I got the latest one. So yeah, you
PlayStation
should
5.
give it a try.
Oh,
Yeah, it's really nice. I guess it's worth the hype.
I don't know. I mean, like the only thing you really get out of it is like some platform exclusives. But apart from that, I get all of the same things
Mm,
on PC, and I don't have to pay for online game. I can just buy a game and play it online without buying like an extra subscription, like the PSN or whatever. And I
yeah,
can
I
play
guess yeah,
with
yeah, true.
with keyboard and mouse like a man without the aim assist.
Like a man. Fair enough.
I'm
I
just
mean, it
throwing shade.
depends.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends. It depends because, like, maybe if you're used to it right now, I don't know if I. it's been so long I played game with like a keyboard and mouse. Like
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I just want to get off the computer and look at the different screen. But
yeah.
yeah, I've been enjoying that. I also played Asphalt.
Oh, the
It's a
racing
cars
game?
game.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Really cool. Super cool. I like the cars. Super
Mm.
cool. Anyway,
No, I've just been I finished the Disco Elysium, and I've just mostly been playing finals. I tried playing a little bit of RimWorld. Every once in a while, I get a desire to play like something like RimWorld, but it gets too complex and too out of hand really quickly. And like after a couple of days, I forget what the heck I was even trying to do, and so it just sort of tapers off.
yeah.
Yeah,
Quick question, yeah? Would you wanna would you wanna work in the gaming industry?
I was thinking about it every once in a while. I was like, that would be pretty cool, but I just don't have the skill set for it. My skill set is just so far removed from like the gaming side of things that it's like, what am I even gonna do there? Build them a website and be like, oh
They
yes,
might need
I
it.
worked in the gaming industry.
No, no,
I
but
built a marketing website for a game.
but I don't think I think you can fit in there. Like, I mean, your experience will count for something.
Potentially, yeah. Um, maybe I don't know.
Would you be up
Apparently,
for rebranding?
like Relic, they're in Vancouver, and I think that they like went um basically what's the word, because they've been bought a few times, uh but recently I think they basically become independent again, so now they're like trying to build some games and they're local, but I don't know. They always have, if you look at the job postings, it's always like, oh, game engine development, like OpenGL shaders, C++, and it's like I know of those things, but I wouldn't know what to do there, and like, you know it's just very few of my skills are translatable into what they actually do there. So sadly,
Well, would you be open to rebranding? Like, say for example, right now you have your experience, I mean your skill
hmm
for a lot of years, and um, if you get to work in a different industry right now, would you be open to like rebrand, like relearning a new set of skills? Say like, for example, working in a different industry, like in the gaming industry, and now you you would have to like, you know, not learn from the beginning, but rebrand, like
well,
relearn.
it's quite hard to say rebrand, like, because you lose a lot. Like if I were to do that, I would probably lose a lot. I mean, well, first you have to learn like a lot of mathy stuff like trig, because like all the game engine stuff is all like hardcore amounts of trig, which I used to be pretty decent at like 20 years ago in school, just solving the equations on the board. I don't know how well that applies. Like I remember having some courses at BCIT actually where we were doing 3D graphics in Excel, which is really interesting because effectively like a lot of this stuff, and again that's like from 20 years ago, so it's very basic. Like a lot of the 3D graphics is like matrix transforms, like you have a coordinate and then you want to like translate it about in the space, so you apply various matrices in it, so you have like a matrix
Mhm,
with like cos of theta, sine theta, 1 1 identity or something, and oh look, it rotates it by the angle theta on this plane.
mhm,
And so if you like do all of these transformations, you can take that point and like put it over there. So we had this assignment where we like get this geometric shape, which was just graphed in an Excel's plot function, and then we're supposed to figure out the matrices to like translate it by, or like rotate it by a certain angle, translated like shear it, change the perspective, and then as you put
mhm.
those values in, those matrix transformations apply, and visually you can see like that thing gets rotated, and that was pretty cool, because it's like very in your face about how that stuff actually works. But, these days with modern graphic pipelines, like Metal and Direct 3D and all that stuff, it's just completely different. And like I watch some guys who like work on shaders, There's this channel called Acerola, and he like writes shaders for fun, and he does like absolutely crazy shit with shaders. And it's like, oh, I have no idea what's going on, how he even achieves the things that he achieves with what he does. Like when he starts going into the explanations about how these things work, it's just like, so I feel like I would have to regress back almost like 20 years, and I just don't know if it would be worth it to get like a an internship slash junior position and start learning all this stuff from scratch. It would be like a massive hit. It's just in a world where I didn't have to care about my paycheck, it would have been a really cool experiment to try to get into that stuff. But being able to maintain the lifestyle in the family, that's just not gonna work.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I guess, yeah. I guess that's the constraint really. Because in terms of like interest, sometimes you find like outside of what we do, I think there are other things that actually catch my attention, and I wish like, you know what, it'd be nice to actually try this out. But then you think about it, and you're like, well, but that would mean that you have to like start from the beginning now, and but I think you get to a point where it's not really like starting from the beginning. For example, you might not have used the tool, but at least you know of it and you know how it should work. You know what they use it for.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah, no,
it's
that
not
that's
like
fair. That's fair.
you're not like going to the military to learn how to use the gun. Like this is something that you have been in a
Mm-hmm.
around it. Like
Yeah,
so I don't know. It's still coding and it's still gonna be like programming.
yeah. I
So
think that ultimately it's true. It is still coding, and like outside of just getting crazy into like engines or something like that, you can probably do a lot with non-specific programming skills. But the other thing too is like the habits that I have from web development are just not the habits that you want to have in high performance environments like game engines, because they work really
well,
hard on optimize like the things that they do, the languages. It's like, oh yeah, you're not going to be writing in like some memory managed language where you just don't have to think about these things at all. You actually have to allocate your own memory and actually know all of the algorithms and data structures, which I haven't had a need to use in like last 20 years. But in that industry, I feel like that's where you would have to know, because now you're manually managing everything. So it's like a choice of like doubly linked list versus some fancier data structure actually matters, unlike in web development where you don't see that abstraction level at all. So, you know,
fair enough.
it's like, yeah, I
Yeah,
have to
fair
go
enough.
back to school for like 2 3 years to kind of just get a refresher on all of these things and
Yeah.
learn so much new stuff. It would be really interesting. I don't know if I am receptive enough to that type of learning now, or I'd be like, I can't handle any of that. I don't understand.
Yeah.
I probably feel like a dummy because it's like, oh Jesus, none of it makes sense.
Because I feel like, you know what, this is just my own opinion.
Hmm.
And if someone asked me if you can do it, I would say you can. I would root for you to do it because I feel like you would you would wanna. I feel like you would wanna do it, not just. I mean, like you said, if the paycheck was not a thing, I think you would just do it just because you'd be curious about how everything works, and you probably just like. I feel like you probably feel like your younger self again, and now you get to actually try to learn something.
It's it's
Like
it's
right now.
possible. I think it's likely, because I like to criticize the games that I play, um, but you know, um, if I were to be told, it's like, hey, if you want to build a game, what kind of game would you build? That part is really I was thinking about it every once in a while. I was thinking like, oh man, this game mechanic that they have in this game is just kind of weak. Like it could have been so much more that you could do with it. Um,
Which one? Like
well,
which one?
like last time I remember when I was playing Metal Gear Solid 5, and you're like this. guy roaming like Afghanistan and South Africa and like all these military bases around. Not a single civilian, which is kind of weird. It's just like military people walking around guarding nothing in the middle of desert. And they have this game mechanic where you can effectively abduct one of the enemy soldiers and like recruit them into your organization, and if they know the language then they can interpret for you, so now you can like hear what the enemy soldiers are saying and it gets translated
Hmm.
for you. But until
Hmm.
you capture such a person, they like talk in their native language, so you don't get like the subtitles for it, you get nothing. Thankfully, like when you're in Afghanistan, they all speak Russian, so I could understand what they were saying without having the guy. But when they're like in South Africa speaking Afrikaans or whatever they were speaking there, it's like, okay, I have no idea what's going on. And then later on, you can kind of get your guys to call in over the radio, and it would like give up some people's positions to you. But that was like the only thing you can do with it, and it was just kind of underwhelming because I thought like, wouldn't it be cool if your guys at the base like pretend that they are some commanding officer on a base that you're scouting, and like send a whole squad to investigate something on the other side of the base, so like you can sneak in while like create that opening for you. But they had like literally none of that in the game, and I thought like, man, it there could have been more for what you can do with that ability. There could have been more. So like, but you know, a single mechanic doesn't really make a game. So it's kind of a lot of these things that are easy to criticize, but when it comes to like coming up with the actual cool things that would actually make sense in a game, it's a completely different story.
Fair enough. I mean, fair enough, because I think I don't even know if I would want to like I'm thinking about it now. If I get to contribute to like a game, I only play mostly FIFA and football games, sports games and stuff like this. I'm thinking about it like what would be something. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. But but the thing I know is like I just enjoyed the fact that one time I was taking a class with this guy who worked in the industry and he was showing me some of the tools that he used. I find it very like I think Unity then it
Mm-hmm.
was like mostly Unity 3D or something like this.
Yeah,
And it was then I realized like it's not. I mean, it's from scratch, but it's not really from scratch anymore. Like it used to be like they're like
yeah. There's
is it template?
there's a channel called the Handmade Hero where they literally build an entire game from scratch, like from nothing. So they build the engine themselves, and then they build the game in that engine, and there's like, I don't know, like 300-400 episodes each, like an hour and a half long, where they just go over the process of building this game from scratch in C++, going through like literally every step of the way. So, you know, if you can spend 400-500 hours of your time watching it, you can actually learn in depth how to build a game engine on Windows and how to build your own game. Um, right? But
That
these,
could be a hobby, Vasili.
huh?
That could be a hobby. We could do that. You could do that. We could, I could be a sidekick. We could do that.
I was thinking about it every once in a while, but it's like,
Yeah. Let's do
well,
something we
the
like.
again, the
Just for
programming
fun.
is just but a part of it, right? Because there's art direction, sound, dialogue, like actual like lore and the scenario and what's happening and what's going on. Unless you make something like really, really tiny. Even for a really, really tiny thing, you still have to have some kind of idea of what you're trying to build. Like sometimes people make these tiny games, and it once you look at it, it's like it's pretty simplistic and fairly trivial, but like they came up with that idea and I didn't. So like, there's something to be said about that. Like you have to have some creative vision of what you want to build before, because like tools are whatever. You can like
Vasily,
people
we
use
can
Game
we can
Maker and
engineer
build
this
like
out.
crazy games in Game Maker, and Game Maker is like you can build like these 2D tile based games, or you can use like Phaser or whatever really. But unless you have an idea of what you want to build, having all the tools doesn't really, it's not really going to do anything for you.
There are some people who write the stories for the games, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we could get like I mean, like there are processes to it. But
Yeah.
if we talk off camera, like we decide to do it, I think it'd be interesting. I think it would be interesting. Maybe we can find something we both like.
Yeah.
We'll
I
see.
think I think
We'll
the
see.
the thing to do to kind of dip your toes in it is to like just find if there's like a game jam in your city, because usually there's like a 48-hour game jam where people just like build a game in 48 hours, here's the theme, go. And then people make like
What?
these tiny little teeny tiny games for the game jam. Like a lot of games, a lot of really cool games, they kind of start off as like something really simplistic done for a game jam, and then they just like build more and more and more around it and turn it into something completely different. But even then, you need to have skills, because you have to be able to deliver something in 48 hours, and if you have nothing, then it's like it's gonna be really tough. So it's a bit of
Wow,
a
we do
chicken and egg problem.
hackathons.
Hmm?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing like a hackathon then.
Yeah, yeah, it
It's
is
like a
effectively
hackathon.
it is effectively a hackathon, right? But
Yeah.
it's just like uh, if I were to attend like a robotics hackathon and I know nothing about mechanical engineering and programming microcontrollers, I'd be pretty useless. I can hand people their tools, like, hey, here's that screwdriver you've been looking for.
Listen, that goes a long way. You
that
should not underestimate that.
that
Goes a long
is
way.
that is true. That is true.
Yeah. You get the coffee, you get the pizza, you're doing good. You're playing your own
Yeah,
role.
yeah. It's like
You can't.
back in the day, if you wanted to work in a recording studio, you'd be carrying coffee for people for like 3 years before they let you touch anything, right? So it's kind of the same.
Yeah.
So
You're playing
again,
your part.
if I were to win, I don't know, 50 million bucks and not have to worry about my salary for the next 20 years, sure, I'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'll do it. Anyway, you mentioned something earlier. Um, you said for some of the things that you do right now in web development, you're afraid of going into gaming industry. So I was curious about that. I was going to ask you, I think for gaming industry, you have to do a lot of standardization and like security checks. And I was wondering, like right now in web, um, especially specifically front end. Like if you work, you do mostly front end right now. No,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I think for that. So like if you do front end, what do you consider as like security standards? Like when you work as a front end engineer.
Well, a lot of it, like front end and security, mm, I guess a lot of it is mostly like the application boundary, right? Because whatever happens on user's browser, like, well, they can attack our application inside the browser, but as long as whatever they do doesn't reach into the server side of things and like no malicious information gets passed over to the other side, then they can hack the front end all they want because it's on their machine, right? They're not really affecting anybody else by
Hmm.
doing that. So um, there's like a few things that you have to watch out for in terms of like various injection vulnerabilities and stuff like that. But if you're not building something with a lot of where users input is presented on screen, that's also less of a concern. So in terms of front end, again, it sort of allows people to be pretty sloppy about it and not really think about it. And these days, a lot of times people say, "Oh, it's like an ops type thing." Like they would secure the endpoints with some API gateways and like all of these different things, and we don't care. We just write the code. We just shuffle some JSON back and forth. So, you know, um, when it comes to backend, I think it's more serious. But the other thing too is like a lot of these vulnerabilities, at least in the old paradigm, like a lot of these vulnerabilities are like well understood. You can go to OWASP, you can read about all the different funky things you can do with your backend inputs and like the different things that can happen out of that, like SQL injections and all these other things, like path traversals. Like, however, in the new paradigm with like these multi-layer things with like application gateways and proxies in the middle. People are starting to discover these like really bizarre attacks, like header smuggling, like these things that actually work out as an interplay because of like different technologies at the various layers of the stack interpret standards differently. So some upper layer may pass something that doesn't get interpreted at that level, and then some application lower in the stack, because it's running different library, would choose to interpret that data differently and like smuggle some data into the backend that was not supposed to reach it. And like it's pretty crazy how they figure out all of these things and come up with ways of exploiting them. And that area is just growing exponentially all the time, because like the more complexity you pack in between, the more opportunities for these weird interplays start arising. So when it comes to like the ops and backend side of things, the security concerns are definitely something to be on the lookout for.
But on the front end, you feel like
On the front
you
end,
can get away with it.
on the front end, you can get away with a lot of things, because the front end, you're only attacking your own machine if you're attacking it, you know. I mean, if it's like some sort of cross-site exploit or injection vulnerability or something where, you know, but modern browsers also guard against that way more. Um, so a lot of it is still dictated by the backend. Like the backend has to send correct headers about cross-origin stuff and what is allowed and what is not allowed, and like what domains your application can talk to, and like what domains are allowed to run scripts and all of these things. But that's all of that is backend authoritative. So if you're just working on front end, you can just be like, yeah, I don't know, and not really care.
Yeah. But I feel I feel like right now we work many people work with like templates. I mean, I said templates, frameworks
Mm-hmm.
like Angular and like React. I don't know much about React, but I think Angular comes with like some inbuilt like security. Um, how do you say that? There's some. So for example, we have like the quickest example I can think of right now is sometimes you have the inner HTML, like the one where you can actually like right click on the and actually put in a script, like stuff like this. And I think with Angular we have some service that you can use to block this, to make it a bit secure. So like to make it safe actually. But now that you're describing it, I'm starting to think, I think most of the security kind of like maybe tends to go back to backend stuff,
Mm,
because that's the server that you're actually kind of
right.
protecting.
Well, I mean, you
But
can still have like, if you're not diligent with users' input, and like let's say we're building like a chat application, and whatever I type on my end appears on your end. So if you're not validating my input, and I can like smuggle some scripts into it that your application would just render as scripts and force, like now I'm doing something on my end which forces your computer to like load some scripts from some third party website and run in your browser, like then you have a problem, right? So you still have to do some stuff on the front end to avoid that. But I don't know, I think that's like the most serious thing that you can do, is just to not validate your user's input and render it directly into your application that is shared with other users. The very very early attacks
yeah.
in chat rooms, like back before all the instant messages, you just have like a website with like infinitely loading page where people like type in messages and chat
Mhm.
with one another, like prior to IRC, even probably like prior to AOL, whatever. People would like embed a pixel GIF into the thing, so the GIF gets rendered by everybody, and then you see the IP addresses of everybody in that chat room, and then you like run some exploit that crashes their Windows machine, and then everybody gets disconnected from the chat. This is like,
But
that's how you used
but
to do it 20 years ago. Mm.
but this kind of exploit, would it, I mean, would it be sole responsibility of the front end or also the back end? Because, like, like the chat, there's layers to it.
Hmm.
There is a layer of, what's the name of this middleware? I mean, it depends on what you use to WebSocket,
Well,
like, or
WebSocket
maybe,
it's a transport. It doesn't really look
yeah,
inside. It doesn't care what it's transporting, right? It's just transporting arbitrary payloads back and forth. So if your
yeah,
server never looks into what's inside and just like I type it, the server relays it to you, and then the same application on your end renders it. So if the server is really dumb and it's only shuffling messages around without even trying to understand the contents, then it's up to the front end piece to do the right thing and like filter everything and make sure I can just type like script src https evil.com slash
so,
pawn your
oh, I see what
machine.js.
you mean now. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So like you have to have some form of validation for the text.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I see what you mean. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's pretty serious actually. But I think even now, like most of these things come already
They usually come
with
already
like
addressed
templates.
to some degree. And
Yeah,
there's a lot
with
of
some of the frameworks.
scanning tools that would like
Yeah,
try to own your application, and if it's successful in any kind of way you get a report saying, oh hey, here you have this unescaped string being rendered into the output, so that's not good, you don't fix
yeah.
that. So there's like a
Even
lot of,
HTML5.
yeah, like static scanning, static vulnerability analysis. There's a
Yeah,
lot. It doesn't save you from everything, but you can mitigate a whole bunch of really dumb stuff almost automatically these days, especially if you're paying for it. Like if your company is paying for some sort of security auditing, automated security auditing software that just like scans your code, or you run like security pen tests every quarter or something where they like these things. It's kind of funny, you know. I've been talking to some people in the security space, and it kind of boils down to this checklist thing where in order to have compliance, you have to scan it through some approved scanning software and receive a good score, and then you're considered good. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're actually safe, right? Like you can fix all the bugs that the thing have discovered, but there could be other bugs that the thing doesn't even look for, and you are secure in theory and you're compliant with regulation in theory, but in practice you could have something there that is like totally exploitable. It's like a really weird area. And you know, if you ever go to any security meetups and talk about that stuff, everyone who's like on the security side of things, everyone's gonna be like, oh my god, this is so stupid. You know, we pay these vendors like hundreds of thousands of dollars for these automated scans, and like when I read those scans, because I receive the copies of the scans for the
Mhm,
application that we're building,
mhm.
and they give you these CVEs, and you look at it, and it's like, this is stupid. It's like it detected some like, oh, you scanned our package JSON file and detected some library that has a CVE that is exploitable, but that library is only ever used during the build process. So it would have to be exploited on the build machine to even. And it's like, oh, it's a denial of service. It can make your computer run slower, but the final result, like the application bundle that the build process produces, has no traces of that library. And it's like absolutely irrelevant to what gets deployed. But they're like, you have to fix this. Our scan found it, and therefore you have to fix this. It's like, it's not even exploitable in the production app. Our production app is an HTML file. What the fuck are you talking about? And they're like, you're not compliant unless you fix it. And it just becomes this stupid chase of like fixing really dumb things. Like they're
How
saying,
often do you get this?
well, we get it every time we do a major deployment. They usually run the analysis pass on it, but like one of the most annoying things you can do around this is like if you go into your project and run npm audit, it will
Hmm.
spit at you probably like 5 pages worth of cves of various levels of criticality, and I'm like 95% sure that most of them are not exploitable in your context because again they're like part of the dev packages that never end up on the server, or like they're highly conditional in how can they be like basically it's just dumping a bunch of noise at you. And newer regulations like PCI compliance version, is it 4? I don't remember exactly. I've been talking to some security guys half a year ago, and they were saying like with the latest PCI, which is the credit card compliance, like if you want to receive
Mm-hmm.
payments online, you have to
Mm-hmm.
be PCI
Mm-hmm.
compliant. I think it's PCI pros like cards something processing cards or whatever. And they say like you have to fix all CVEs discovered, and it's like, oh, oh goody, I run npm audit, and a dependency of webpack that I use to
It's a
compile
lot.
my
It's a
site
lot.
has a
Mm-hmm.
CVE, and I'm supposed to fix it somehow, even though that's like 3 vendors down and I have zero effect on it. It's not exploitable in my context, but like if I want to be PCI compliant, I have to fix that shit. And it's just like, how do you think this whole thing works, guys? It's like, are you insane? So I
But
don't
do they ever get to fix everything though? Say, for example, in this kind of.
no. There's literally no way. I mean, if I open my work computer right now and run npm audit, it's probably going to be like shitting its bed saying, oh my god, there's so many things. Are any of them exploitable? Probably not. So yeah, it's it gives like this false sense of security. If you get a report from an automated scan and it's like A+, you got it, and it's like, do you though? Probably not, because there could be stuff in there that nobody even knows about, like there's some 0 days or whatever, and yeah, good luck with that. So it's a very
Yeah.
reactive space. You can only be so proactive about security in your application. Like you can follow best practices in terms of mitigating the obvious dumb stuff, like sanitize your inputs and don't pass shit to SQL queries directly, and like all of these things that we stepped on that particular rake so many times, and like it smacked us in the face so many times that everybody just knows not to do those things, and a lot of it gets baked into the frameworks themselves. But highly sophisticated exploits, like, oh, we could smuggle security headers through your Kubernetes stack of your proxies and run requests authenticated as like some admin user. No individual team would be able to figure that out, because the application team says, well, if I receive valid credentials, I'm going to give them the data. Like we have all the security for the credential. And then the front team says, okay, I'm authenticating against some sort of open ID provider, and I get my JOT and I send that to everybody else. And in between, some weird shit happens where some of it gets stripped or something gets added, and now the system behaves completely differently, and like nobody individually could see it. Well, how are you going to proactively prepare for this? It's really hard. It's going to cost you infinite money to fix and infinite time for dubious benefit.
Fair enough. But for me, I'm just I mean, I started picking up like interest in security recently. Like you said, like you could uh you could not care much about it, but I think at some point your interest starts going into different places. And for me, it's starting to go into security. And I'm starting to think like, I can understand security on the back end,
Mm-hmm.
but on the front end, it's not like it's not there. It's just like we're saying right now, like there are things to actually like that you could work on, but it's just that I guess what I'm just learning from you right now is that it's not as um how do you say it? What's that word now? I'm looking for that word. It's right here. It's not as is it risky? Risky is not a word. How do you say it?
I'm not
Oh my
sure.
God.
I'm not sure.
Give me a
I'm
word.
drawing a blank.
It's not as so like
It's
the
not as
if you get
critical.
if the yeah, critical. That's the word I'm
I
looking
mean,
for.
it's
My
still it's
God.
still it's still critical. It's just not
My
as
God.
critical. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as critical as like the backend stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm really curious. I hope like as I continue to look more into this kind of things, I will learn more things about it. And yeah, we'll see. Because
Yeah.
I could see from like codes, I can see in code form, like security in code form, like maybe some things that you could write better or do better, or maybe some packages that could be trusted or untrusted, stuff like this. I could see all of this now.
There's like things that people don't consider about like how sophisticated these attacks can get. Uh, an example that pops into my mind is, for instance, like when you're checking people's credentials and you say, if, some API key equals
This one.
config.api key allow access to
Oof.
something, right? Like, do you see anything wrong with that?
Oof. I mean, first of all, I don't think you should
No,
keep
like
your
this is
key
server
in.
side key. Like let's say you load your key from
Oh,
your environment variables, like it's not in some config file, but you're doing a comparison. You're comparing a key that comes in a request with the key that you have in your configuration in whatever form.
why would you do that? I don't think you should do that.
Well, how
You
how
do that on the
like
front
you
end?
want to say no in the backend.
Oh, okay. Well,
But
honestly,
like, do you
I
see,
can't
do
really
you see
think of
anything wrong
it.
with that?
I'd imagine because you're saying it, something is wrong with it, but I'm not really sure I can picture it. But tell me, what's wrong with it?
Well, things like that is depending again on your infrastructure, but things like that is vulnerable to a timing attack, and
Hmm.
usually how comparison algorithms work is that they compare bit by bit, and as soon as they
Hmm.
see something that is a discrepancy, they basically bail out early and they say it's false. The comparison is false. So if you give it something completely like something that is completely wrong in the first bit, not even byte, like in the first bit, it's gonna finish in X time. But if like say first 10 bits are correct, it's going to finish in X plus some constant time. And if the first 30 bits are correct, it's going to finish with, X plus however many more constant time. So by
I see.
analyzing the timing of how quickly it fails, you can
Hmm.
eventually arrive at the correct key because basically if it takes longer to compare, that means you're on the right path. So you just keep on checking and eventually you can recover it, right?
Okay.
So you have to do constant time comparison algorithms that will run the comparison in constant time regardless at what point it fails, so that you cannot time it and recover something that way. But 99% of web developers never have to think about that stuff because they don't think that it's it can be exploitable. But it is. And there's like so many of these things that can be exploitable in really weird ways. That's
I
why
don't.
once you start looking into
Mhm.
security, you usually just like, oh my God, we're all gonna die.
Yeah, I guess I'm really eager to see the things that I will learn. But also, like, I think also now, I don't know. I don't think I got like a perfect picture of what you're describing, but I can imagine what it looks like, right? But I think right now, nowadays, I see how environment variables can be stored. Like, I think you can have your key inside somewhere else, like a different storage, and then you can have like an address of that storage in a in another layer of your code, and then you can refer to it as an environment variable probably. So the network is a bit far. So I
Well,
think you have
see,
to it has to be an inside job to be able to like
not
have access
necessarily.
to
Well,
the
okay, like modern CPUs usually have some sort of TPM, like the trusted computing module, or they have some sort of secure enclave, which is like impenetrable from the outside and it does cryptography. And in some simpler chips, I'm not saying that this is like for your M2 chip in your Mac or whatever, but for like the smart cards, like your Metro Pass or whatever, it's like a smart card these days, right? That has like
Mhm,
some
mhm.
some code inside of it that stores your digital ticket, and people would measure the power consumption of the CPU of the smart card to try to understand the key material, because it like they know for a fact that it's using some specific hashing function and they know how it works, so they know how much CPU power, like how much CPU it's using for various operations like bit shifting and XORing and all these different
Mhm, mhm.
things. And by carefully measuring the power consumption of the CPU, they're able to sort of look into what the algorithm is doing at any given moment and recover the private key material from a secure enclave that way. So people get up to all sorts of crazy shit, and if you try to anticipate everything they're gonna do, you're still not gonna ship anything 10 years down the line, because there's just that's why
I feel
yeah, that's why a lot of people just do the ostrich. They just bury their hands in the sand and be like, la 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 la, it'll be fine, you know.
I find like I think I'm gonna enjoy it. I think I'm gonna enjoy it. And maybe yeah, because I think when I started like I think in school in like undergrad, I used to do like pen testing just for fun. And I used to enjoy this side of I don't know what to call it now, computing or whatever. And I mean, we'll see what it looks like when I have to be the one to be like on the defense or like things to
Yeah,
learn about defense or like not to do, not to be
yeah,
vulnerable. We'll
yeah.
see.
It's a lot
Could
of
be.
fun actually. If for certain people, I can see it being a lot of fun, like trying to break into something or try to find exploits or vulnerabilities in things. Because the other thing too is like people do really dumb mistakes, um, and most of hacking is still social engineering. Like
Of course.
you would think that it's some sophisticated
Of course.
algorithms versus
No.
some guy pretending to be your
Of
boss
course.
calling the secretary and say, "Hey, I need a
Yeah,
password
of
for the
course.
email account pronto right now, or you're fired." Like, and that works so many
Social
times.
engineering.
Social
Yeah.
engineering, but at the same time, there's these online sites where you can register and you can try your skills in terms of like hacking. There's like
Really?
hackthebox.eu. It's kind of funny because for one of those sites, in order to register on it, you have to hack it first. So they give you like a
That
quite
should be fun.
quite a simple puzzle, and if you break it, then you can actually register. So you actually have to hack something to even get to the rest of the platform. And then, they give you like they can spin up a virtual machine with some vulnerable system and be like, you need to exfiltrate that file from that machine, and you just have at it. Go and figure out what is running on it, what the vulnerability is, how to exploit it, and like if you pull the file out of it, you plug it into the text box and you click check, and then it says you got it, or it says sorry, try again. And there's like various levels of difficulty. There's a couple of sites where you can register. I think Hack the Box is one of them, and there's a bunch of
Okay.
others. So there's one
Yeah.
where you can get like a Windows binary, like a hack me file, which like asks you for
Oh,
some
interesting.
password, and you use like Ghidra or IDE Pro or some debugging tools to like analyze it and like try to break it that way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's yeah.
Pers- for you personally, have you ever considered hacking before?
I did it for funsies.
Yeah, I think for funsies. But yeah, have you considered it to do like as a real job?
It's it would be interesting. Again, it's one of those things where you kind of have to be in that environment and meeting with those people. I bought tickets for an event called Defend the North, which is gonna be in a couple of weeks. They're like doing this
Virtual?
security training exercise. Like a big group of people are getting together,
I-
and it's basically like
Is it virtual?
huh?
Is it virtual?
No, I think it's in person.
Okay.
It's like a mini conference slash security, like a war game, where
Mm.
they give you a scenario. It's like I don't know what the scenario might be, but I don't know. Terrorists have
We'll see.
blown up government's data centers, and at the same time, the hurricane knocked out half of the power grid. What do you do now? In terms of your resilience and like all
Call
these other
911.
things. Huh?
I said call 911. What do you mean? What do you do?
Well,
Call
like
911.
as like an enterprise or as a government agency, like what are your preparedness steps? What are your contingencies in case of that kind of event? So I think it would just be interesting. I plus I get to hang out with some of the security people.
Yeah. When are you going? So I can ask you when you come back
I
about.
believe it's in the first week of April. Uh,
Okay, you have time.
yeah, it's in a
You
couple of
have time.
weeks. They're running it in Vancouver, but I think that they run it across the board. They probably have something of that nature in Toronto as well. So I'm pretty sure like if you Google or look for meetups in your area for security, there's plenty of stuff there. But it's
You know
its
what?
own world. But it's a lot of
Yeah,
fun too.
I imagine it is. Honestly, every time I think about like learn stuff about it, like it's exciting, you know.
Hmm.
It's always like, oh yeah, you can do this. Oh yeah, this can happen. You know, like even this conversation right now felt like a bit exhilarating. Like I was just like excited, like
Yeah.
to know about things
And
like
I,
this. So
I
yeah,
think I
it's
think there's a lot of demand for it too because
oh yeah,
well, I mean
I'm excited
every year
for
we
it.
get
Yeah.
these high profile data leaks or the big scandal that we had where some like government employee forgot his laptop on the metro and like hundreds of thousands of people's personal data got leaked on the dark web because wah wah, he forgot his laptop. Shit happens, right? So
Mm-hmm.
security, we get a lot of these simulated phishing attacks in our email. Like every once in a while, they would send you like some, oh, here's a special promotion for you, employee of this company, and if you click here, you can get a 30% discount on, I don't know, Lululemon yoga pants for your girlfriend. And if you click on it, it'd be like, haha, busted. You weren't supposed to click on it because it's totally fake. And so far, I have a 100% detection rate personally. And I'm like, get more sophisticated, people. This is child's play. This is not even interesting.
100%. That's yeah, fair enough.
Mhm.
Fair enough. Anyway, Vasily, this is it for me. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Honestly, I will let you know how my journey on this thing is going because it's taking a lot of my interest nowadays.
Yeah, yeah,
Like I was also learning about the OWASP
yeah.
10, like stuff like this. So yeah, we'll see, we'll
Good.
see how
No,
it goes.
good for you. I'm glad that you're going in that direction because a lot of people don't even consider that it's a thing that they kind of have to appreciate. And most times when I talk about it, I usually say you don't necessarily have to go like just all in into that field, but you just have to appreciate what's out there in terms of um like attack patterns and vectors and how these people think and what they look for and what they try to exploit. Just be aware of it and it'll affect how you write your applications in a positive way because ultimately if everybody is doing this to some degree we're going to be in a much better place where there's like some dedicated security engineer that has to like oversee 35 different applications and he cannot commit code to any of them so he's just like running around on fire all the time. Like make that guy's life easier. Write better code right away,
Fair enough.
understand what's out there
Yeah,
and how people are going to try to own your shit and make friends with
yeah.
security people. Like go to some event, go to a security conference, go to some
I
meetup,
would like to.
talk to these
I would
people.
like to.
I think they're like every time I mentioned it before because every time I go to B-sides it's like I don't know anybody here and it's weird. Like what I mean by that is there's no developers there. Like development scene in Vancouver is not that big. Like I know a lot of people in it. None of them are there, and that's kind of annoying because they should be because they should care about security of the applications that they build, and they're nowhere
Mm-hmm.
to be found. So find a place like that, go there, hang out, meet
Okay.
people. It'll be fun.
Okay. Thank you, Vasily. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mo.
So
It's been fun. It's been 55 minutes, but it went by like super fast. So
yeah,
that's all.
yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully by the next week, my throat will be in a better shape and I won't be coughing as much. Don't have to edit all of it out in post. But yeah, it's been a lot of
Mhm.
fun. And thank you, everybody who's watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you in the next one. So have a great one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.